Hello class, my name is Antonina Kaplan. Today I'm presenting my topic, a convergence of terrorism and transnational crime organizations. Terrorism has quickly evolved into an international phenomenon and has been the criminal plague of the world for over 2 centuries. Over the past decades, terrorist and transnational criminal organizations has developed successful relationship which has led to increased criminal collaboration and convergence. As terrorism and transnational crime have evolved alongside globalization, they have rapidly emerged as a top threats to national security. 1980s, the use of the crime has become an important factor in the evaluation of terrorism. As such, the 90s can be described as a decade in which the crime-terror nexus was consolidated. Generally referring to the relationship between organized crime and terrorism, the nexus most commonly applies to the use of crime by terrorist groups as a source of funding, such as drug trade or engaging in people trafficking. This is the best demonstrated in international smuggling operations that move various commodities, from illicit narcotics, weapons, and human cargo, between countries and continents. For example, Colombian authorities have reported that Medellin cocaine cartel hired ELN organization to plant car bombs in 1993 because they did not have the capabilities to conduct terrorist acts themselves. The New York Times noted the numerous allegations suggesting that activities linked to Al-Qaeda converge connection with Bosnian criminal organizations to establish a route for trafficking Afghan heroin into Europe via the Balkan. The rise of transnational organized crime changed the nature of terrorism. They have produced two traditional separate phenomena that have begun to reveal many operational and organizational similarities. As depicted on slide, organized crime and terrorism exist on the same level and thus are capable of converging at a central point. Transcriminal organizations and terrorist organizations often share similar tactics to reach their operational goals. This includes acts of terrorism, drug and human trafficking, involvement in criminal activities for profit. Globalization has impacted the funding of terrorism by allowing the connection between terrorists and transnational crime organizations to blossom. Note, with the specific reference to organized crime, cooperation with terrorists may have significant benefits for organized criminals by destabilizing the political structure, undermining law enforcement, and limiting possibilities for international cooperation. International terrorism is heavily dependent upon finance. It often relies on the financial assistance of a criminal organization, which is often interested in the political and financial destabilization on the territory of another state. Terrorist and transnational criminal organizations, therefore, have jointly expanded their networks through the world. The phenomenon of globalization has widened the reach of international threats by making them more mobile and destructive. It is not uncommon for criminal organizations to reap profits from terrorism, such as by gaining new footholds and in financial markets and epicenters. For example, the terrorist attacks against the World Trade Center in New York City and the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. sharply decreased international shares and oil prices, thus benefiting the enterprising criminal organizations abroad. Financially, attacks were particularly advantageous to main committees of the attacks. This graph shows the amount of attacks in the United States in the past years, and you can see it's dramatically increased. Common methods of terrorism are transnational criminal organization-sponsored attacks, cyber terrorism, drug and human trafficking. That's what we're going to talk today about. Osama bin Laden was associated with the world's largest terrorist organization, the Al-Qaeda organization. The sponsors of attacks against the United States government included countries such as Lebanon, Iran, and Syria. They were the first attacks by Al-Qaeda against the United States and signaled the birth of the new movement in terrorism. Perhaps the greatest consequence was the new bond between transnational crime and foreign terrorism. By definition, terrorism is a long-term, well-planned, financially secure activity and can only be carried out by organized groups. All terrorists are criminals, and whether they are private criminals or public criminals is a mere matter of semantics. The terrorist attacks against the World Trade Center in New York City and the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. killed nearly 3,000 people on the ground, but this would not have been possible without the financial support of international crime organizations. It is perfect symbiosis. Both criminal parties both rely on and drain each other. Furthermore, modern terrorism is a constantly evolving threat. Its myriad of techniques and sources, including its close relationship with transnational crime, render it ever more difficult to fight and defeat. One stretch is communication. It remains difficult to identify the links of the communication chain and how to prevent further terrorist attacks. Another area of modern terrorism is cyberterrorism, related to the possibility of destabilizing the operation of computer systems and networks, as well as those of other technologies. Due to globalization, network cooperation between transnational crime organizations and cyber terrorist groups has spread worldwide. According to FBI, terrorist organizations, including ISIS and Al-Qaeda, are attempting to build offensive cyber capabilities. The Cyber Caliphate hacking groups managed to hack Malaysian Airlines website, and they was trying to take control of TV5 broadcast in France. Also, bank accounts and credit card information stolen, as well as they interrupted Twitter, Google, and Facebook accounts. More recently, concerns have been expressed about new financing methods, including through social media, new payment products and services such as internet-based payment services. This is further compounded by the fact that states like China and Russia, as well as Iran, are far more skilled in this area. Cyber terrorists get paid for the stolen political and economic secrets of foreign states, thus evolving them into incalculable threat to national security. Organizations or individuals often depend upon the drugs and drugs trafficking industries as typical financiaries of terrorism. Engaging in the drug industry is one of the most dangerous types of criminal activity. Transnational criminals capitalize on drug production, storage, transportation, and the sale of prohibited items that place individuals at the great risk. The drug industry, corresponding to approximately 8% of world trade, is evolving steadily and increasing technical and financial potential, adapting the latest achievements or scientific and technological progress to their needs. Groups that have been involved in drug trafficking include FARC in Colombia and Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb. The drug cartel keeps the majority of the profit, but often pay the remaining dividends to finance their preferred terrorist organization. Domestic groups rely heavily on drug revenue, earning an estimated $200 million annually from heroin trafficking. A Malayan national, for instance, was convicted in the United States in 2011 for material support for terrorism, for transporting cocaine through the West and North Africa with the intent to supply Al-Qaeda and FARC. Drugs enter the United States by different routes. They breach borders, crossing the desert between the United States and Mexico, and they are also delivered from small planes and underground tunnels. U.S. drugs demand currently running at the annual rate of 900 tons for marijuana, 300 tons for cocaine, 13 tons for heroin, and 9 tons for other different drugs. The most recent United Nations estimates place total retail sales of illicit drugs at around 320 billion, or almost 9% of GDP. Revenue from drug trafficking may be used by terrorist groups to buy weapons, pay bribes, and recruitment. The activity of the terrorist organization directly depends upon the amount of funding of transnational criminal organizations. Criminal organizations are quite sophisticated and manipulative. Well-known criminal organizations such as ISIS, whose activities prohibited on the territory of the most countries, is recognized as the richest terrorist organization in the world. According to the experts at World Economics Forum, transnational crime organizations and terrorist groups are the main geopolitical threat, with a disposable profit of over $1 billion per organization. Another source of illegal income, human trafficking, has become a preferred operation. Trafficking in person is one of the newer patterns of modern-day terrorism. A number of terrorist groups have raised substantial funds in this way, including ISIS. According to country reports on terrorism, the sharp increase in Iraqi activity, where the already high number of people kidnapped or taken hostage more than doubled in 2016. ISIS takes hostage citizens from other states, with particular emphasis on actions against the United States citizens for enslavement or ransom. The United States government's report estimated that ISIS raised an estimated $35 million to $45 million for the past few years through ransoming hostages. Security officials told that prior to the execution of journalist James Foley, several other European hostages had made release by ISIS, but only after the terror group received a reported $2 million for each. According to public remarks, United States Treasury officials, at least $175 million in ransom has been funneled to terrorist organizations since 2008. The United Nations Security Council has repeatedly condemned it. Kidnapping for ransom and expresses concern that ransom payments to terrorist groups are one of the sources of income, which supports their recruitment, strengthens their operational capability to organize and carry out terrorist attacks. Modern terrorism is the single greatest threat to the world, and the world community makes tremendous effort to fight this global scourge. Of course, there are many factors contributing to the growth of the terrorist threat, but there is one condition without which the activities of terrorists would be almost impossible: corruption. Terrorists use the service of corrupt officials in almost every area of their activities, but their main concern are logistical support as well as different types of illegal activities such as drug and human trafficking. A good example of such a government corruption. Terrorists supported illegally smuggling into the United States group of Hamas and ISIS, using the services of corrupt Mexican officials in Beirut. They illegally obtained tourist visas from the employee of Mexican embassy in Lebanon. Another example, weapons legally supplied to the Iraqi government by the United States were sold on the black market by Iraqi military personnel and ended up in the hands of ISIS as a fuel support for terrorist groups. Corrupt officials contribute to transnational criminal profits, which are then often donated for terrorism. The higher the level of corruption in the state, the more favorable the ground for terrorism development. International crime organizations supply money for corrupted government officials in order to control criminal activity and develop international terrorism. The priority problems allow states to coordinate their actions in the fight against terrorism. Massive profits from drugs, the trafficking of people, and modern cyber crimes benefit the development of transnational crime organizations and increase terrorist activities around the world. Narco-trafficking remains quite strong and financially successful, and is difficult to prevent and contain it. Transnational crime organizations and terrorist groups mutually benefit each other. Financial assistance strengthens terrorism in a way no other cause do. Thus, in conclusion, to better understand the relationship between transnational crime and international terrorism, one should be considered the shared financial and economic resources between them, their similar activities, and their similar degrees of interference in other state affairs. All terrorists are criminals. They offer a perfect sisterhood in the epicenter of transnational crime. Transnational criminals offer money to fund terrorism, which is in turn benefits transnational criminals by offering new victims and loopholes. One cannot address either solution individually. They are essentially wounded. Thank you very much, class, for listening. Thank you.